Peter here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today, I have for you a pen from the revived brand Delta, which has an interesting backstory as to how it got its name, at least here in the US, and that is the Delta Dune. What I am going to do today is go over the parts and features of this interesting offering, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to the good folks at Applebaum for providing this pen for review. On a side note, if you will be attending the upcoming DC Pen Show at noon on the Saturday of the show, I will be giving a bit of a talk and have a live Q&A session. If you are at the show, I would love to see you. Okay, back to the pen at hand. It arrives in this branded cardboard box. Something that's a little bit different. The box has like a faux alligator treatment on the exterior. The top lifts off inside. This pen is from Applebaum, so there is an Applebaum sticker. And then there is a warranty card, as well as a use and care guide in a couple of different languages. The Delta Dune is available in 5 different varieties. There is the Horizon, Black, Mirage, Oasis, and Reflex. And the model I have to share with you today is the Reflex. This pen is made from an Italian resin. The blues and whites and grays of this Reflex model come together in a kind of like a marble-like patterning that, in the words of Delta, invokes a Mediterranean charm. This is one of those resins with a great deal of variety, which will be different on each pen which is produced. Now, in regard to the name of this pen, I am a naturally curious person, and I like to think I am very observant as well. And I have a keen eye for detail, which sometimes leads me into interesting little factual nuggets about the pens that I'm reviewing. Now, it's not that uncommon for a pen to have a different name in different regions of the world. For example, the Pilot Metro. It is called the Metro in the United States, but it's known in other areas of the world as the MR. In regard to this pen, I noticed that some European retailers had the name of this pen as the Dune, D-U-N-E, but US retailers had it as the Duna, D-U-N-A, which happens to be the Italian word for dune. Now, I thought that change was a bit odd, so I had to look into it a little bit deeper, and I found something rather interesting. According to Nino Marino, the gentleman who owns the brand, when this collection was launched, the name he gave it was Dune, D-U-N-E. And outside of the US, that is still the name. In the US, at some point in time, a distributor or retailer mistakenly called the pen Duna, D-U-N-A. That others followed suit. So the pen is actually called Duna in the US because someone made a typo. Who knows who made the initial mistake, but I thought that was interesting. Okay, not to get sidetracked again, but while this story doesn't necessarily relate to pens, it's one of my favorite tales about how something got its name. In the San Diego area, there is a place called the Wild Animal Park. It's an extension of the world-famous San Diego Zoo. It's a very cool park to visit if you're ever in the area. Back in the day, they used to have this tram which would take you around the park, where you could see all of the African animals in enormous enclosures, built to replicate their natural habitats. When the park was being created, there was a group of folks tasked with naming all of the areas and attractions contained within the park. They were giving everything like African-sounding names, like there was one area called the Nairobi Village. They had been hard at work naming things for a while, and everyone was tired and at the end of a long day, and it came time to name the tram. And someone blurted out, "Who gives a anyways?" Which turns out to be WGASA, which happens to sound like an African word. And that's how the Wagasa Bush Line got its name. Now, the tram has since been replaced, but the legend of the name will live on in infamy. Maybe in the notes below, leave me your favorite story about how something got its name. Okay, let's take a look at the parts and features of this Italian offering. The top of the cap comes to a rounded coned point that transitions into the clip, which tapers down at an even rate of decline and is punctuated with a wheel. The clip is a little bit on the stiff side, but that wheel helps it accommodate materials of varying thicknesses. On the back side of the cap, near the top, it is engraved with Delta, as well as Italy, where these pens are manufactured. And then at the base of the cap, it is engraved with Reflex, which is the specific model, as well as the number of the pens. These pens have numbers, but they are not numbered limited editions. The cap angles up to its thickest point, which is about here at the first silver band, and then it angles down slightly. There is a very small step down from the cap to the barrel. That larger silver band is actually on the barrel. After that band, we have an ink window. Now, I will say that when I first saw this ink window, I felt the blue was a bit too bright and kind of clashed a bit with the overall visual aesthetics of this pen. But once you get some ink inside the pen, there's a less light refraction in that material. So it darkens a bit and it doesn't stand out as much visually, which I liked. The barrel tapers down, and at the end we have a piston knob, which, like the top of the cap, comes to a rounded coned point. The cap twists off with just over 1 rotation, and underneath we have a number 6 stainless steel nib. I believe that these nibs are manufactured by Jowo. It's engraved with the company logo and name, and available in a number of different tipping sizes. There is extra fine, fine, medium, broad, a 1.1, as well as a 1.5 stub. And then there's a flex extra fine and a flex fine. And here's a look at the plastic feed. The section is rather short. It's slightly concave and then abruptly transitions to the cap threads and another straight portion before reaching that aforementioned silver band. While the section proper isn't very long, my grip does spill over to the threads, but I don't find the threads to be sharp or impede my grip in any way. The cap does post. It does post deeply and securely. It's light enough that I don't feel it backweights the pen or throws off the balance. I will say that the edge of the cap could stand to be rounded just a hair. The edge against the inside of your palm isn't so much as sharp, but just has enough of an edge to get your attention at times. Since I mentioned the piston knob and showed you the ink window, you have probably safely deduced that this is a piston filler. I will say that the piston requires more twists than usual to operate. I won't twist it now because the pen is inked, but it was like 10 or 11 twists each way for this piston. Now, each twist wasn't a full rotation, but it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which just felt like a lot. And then you had to go through the same thing in reverse over again to suck up the ink. It's not a major issue at all. The piston works just fine, but just something that was a little bit excessive enough to catch my attention. On the Applebaum website, this pen retails for approximately $140, depending on the current euro to dollar exchange rate. I'll put a link in the notes below to the Applebaum website where you can see additional details. I feel that price is appropriate for what you receive with this pen. It just feels right. I am fond of the unique resin. It is well constructed, and as you'll see in the writing sample, the broad nib I have on this specific pen is very pleasant to write with. Okay, now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and that aforementioned writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Delta Dune Reflex. Just want to give you another closer look at that material. And I just think that this particular model looks really nice. I do like kind of the marbling of that blue and gray. And I think it looks nice. In regard to a couple of other Delta models, here it is with the Delta Dolce Vita. This is the newer version. And then this is the Delta Dolce Vita Oversize, which is one of the original ones. You can see the difference between the oversized and the regular. Mainly the difference is the section. Look at this rather chunky section that is on the oversized. I really like that section. I'm fond of large sections, and this one has one of the largest in my collection. But that's what it looks like. Let's see, did I get it? No, I'm trying to put it on the wrong cap. Let's do the oversized there, and this is the standard one. And then finally, we have the Oro model. And in regard to some non-Delta pens, here it is with a Montegrappa Venezia. And here it is with an Aurora Optima. And finally, here it is with a Momento Zero. This was the Cometa model, which was available through Stilo and Stile. In regard to some uncapped comparisons, this is what it looks like with the Momento Zero, and then the Montegrappa Venezia, and then finally here is the standard Dolce Vita from Delta. So here we have the Delta, and this is the Dune. And this specific pen is the Reflex. And this is a broad stainless steel nib. And the ink that I'm using is one of my favorite blues, which is Krishna Peacock Blue. This is what the ink looks like. It's a nice saturated blue. This is what it looks like with Pilar Rushizuku's Konpeki, as well as the Anderillium blue-ringed octopus. I hate when I smear the ink like that. On the bottom of my ink samples, a lot of them have that. Basically, it's because I don't wait long enough for it to dry before I set them on top of there. This is what the Krishna bottles look like. It's a really nice, neat bottle. I wish it was a little bit larger, but it kind of is in the shape of a peacock feather. And it's some really nice ink as well. And here we go with the rest of the writing sample. Am I going to fit? Scrunch it in there. I'm fond of this broad nib. It's a rather generous broad nib. You're not going to get a lot of line variation out of here, even if you press it. But I will say the ink flow on here is generous. In regard to reverse writing, it's a little on the scratchy side, but not too bad, but gets the job done. And in regard to some fast writing, the feed keeps up very well. And I will say, overall, this broad nib is fairly smooth. I do enjoy it. So there we have the Delta Dune Reflex. I just think that it's an interesting offering from Delta that's a little bit different than their standard, kind of orange and black models. And it's something well worth checking out. Like I mentioned, I'll have a link to it in the notes below where you can see it on the Applebaum website. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.